Hi, this is Michael Kennedy from Developmentor. I recently wrote a blog post on building basic ASP.NET MVC forms using Razor, model binding, that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd turn that into a live screencast for you as well. So I've downloaded the application that we start with here from the blog and open it up in Visual Studio. And here, we'll go ahead and run it so you guys can have a look at it. So now then, MVC thinks it should load up the wrong page. So here we go. We've got a basic store. It's got some products, prices, quantities, and so on. And we have the ability to edit these products. You can see at the bottom, this would be home/edit/product2. And then this is home/create. Neither of these methods do very much right now. They're not implemented yet. So during this screencast, we're going to implement a create and we're going to implement an edit method. And we're going to build the underlying forms and the structure to save these back into SQL Server. Okay, so let's go over to the home controller here and scroll down. We've got some pre-existing methods and we need the same structure, so let's just take that and make this the create method. So what we need to do is we need to create a product and provide it to view, which will show us an edit form. So I'm going to say var product equals new product, and that's coming out of an entity framework data model. So imported that namespace, and we're just going to pass the product on along here. So that basically sets the model for the view. And then the view doesn't exist. You can see ReSharper's painting it red to say there's a problem here. The view doesn't exist. So let's use Visual Studio to create it. We'll say add view. Create is what we want, strongly typed. We'll pick product because that's the one we're working with. And we could pick a create, but the whole point of this screencast is actually to look at how we do that. So let's go ahead and just start from an empty one, and we'll use the default master page by not specifying one. So here you go. And let's set this to create a product, and same thing down here. Now the first thing we have to do to create a form that we can post data back to the server with is obviously to create an HTML form of the variety like that. Typically in MVC though, we don't type form like this. We actually use these things called HTML helpers. So we'll say @using HTML.begin form. And then we're going to type into here, in this section, all the fields that we need to save during the form post. And this will actually, this implements the disposable pattern, and it'll create a form opening block at the beginning, and down here at the bottom it'll create a form, /form. So we have a couple of properties on our product here. We're going to have a name, price, quantity, those kinds of things. So let's just create a few areas. Let's say we're going to say HTML.label4. We could just type the name of the field here, but we get a lot more durability over time if we do it this way. So let's say label4, let the model goes to model.name. And then we also want a area to edit this. So let's say we want to put that into a text box. So we'll say text box 4. If we wanted sort of a rich text multi-line thing, we could say text area, but we want one line, so we'll say this. That's our name. And let's go ahead and give it a little extra space here. Copy this because we're going to need to do this a few times. We're going to say price. Same thing here is price. Down here, let's have under this one, let's have quantity and stock. Whoops. Quantity and stock. And then we're going to have is featured or just featured. Okay. Now featured is a Boolean, so we can't really, I guess we could have a text box, but it would just come back as true or false. That would be kind of silly. So let's say checkbox for this. Now, this will probably put it on 2 lines. The way I'd like to have it here is I'd rather have sort of a checkbox and then the text featured question mark or something like that. So let's do a little tiny bit of formatting. Put this in here into a div, and let's just say style equals float left. We'd probably use some CSS, but for this simple example, let's not worry about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this and see if our create method works. And of course, periodically MVC will pick the wrong startup. I'll show you how to fix that in a second. We just want to go here and hit create new product. And there we have it. Here's our name, our price, our quantity and stock, and featured you can see is floating to the left. But we have no button to save it. So let's go ahead and do a couple of formatting things while we're at it. Might as well look a little bit nicer. So let's put a line break in here on the end of each one of these. There's probably better ways to do this, but for expediency's sake, let's just do it this way. Okay, and then let's go down here and say that we're going to have a submit button. and I'm just going to let the toolbox type it in for us. And in MVC, you'll notice there's a whole lot fewer controls to work with than, say, web forms, and we just get the basic HTML one. So we're just going to submit button here. We could have just typed that as well, but create product. We don't need the ID or anything like that. It'll just submit the form that it's in. Okay, so this is good. We all have our form going now. Let's look at it one more time. Yes, and it keeps going here. That's frustrating. So what you can do is you can go over to the properties for the project and say under web, just start a specific page. You want the home page, so just put nothing there. That'll do. Now you say go. And it'll start just /home. Okay, so here we are, products, create new. We can go now create a product, and you can see it's flickering there. It's posting back. So the post is actually happening. What we have to do now is go back to the controller, click in the right spot, go to controller, and we have to actually implement this get post redirect pattern. So we could actually detect whether or not this is a get or a post and then act accordingly here, but that's kind of like a trail of tears that you would be going down. Lots of pain there, so don't do that. What we're going to do is put an HTTP get on this method, create a copy of it, and put an HTTP post here, and say that this actually takes a product. Okay. There's more advanced ways that we can do this, but for now, let's just do that. Okay. So what MVC is going to do is going to see, well, this takes a product, and it's going to look at our form and says, well, okay, I got a thing called name, so set the name property to that. So you've got a thing called price, set whatever value there is to this guy. Now, we're not going to do any validation in this example. We'll come back to that some other time. So what we're going to do is we have a base controller called store controller that has a entity framework entity set in there called entities. So we're just going to use that one to say products.add object product. Okay, put that in there, and then we're going to say entities.save changes. Okay, so save that, and then instead of going back to the same form, which is confusing to the user, they just said save, and then you kind of still be at the form. Did it create it or not? We're just actually going to say return a redirect. Whoops, if I could spell, I would say that redirect to the home page. Okay, that's where our product list is already. So when we first do a request to /home/create, we're going to actually generate the form. Then when we submit the form, the attributes are going to self-select over here. Model by name will occur. Populate the product. We're going to stick it in the database and save it, and then go back home. Okay, let's see how that works. Clean this up a bit while we're at it. Okay, so we come over here, see we monitor, keyboard, CD drive, and taco sauce. So let's create a Hot Wheels Camaro. And this is, what are these, like $2.99 I'm guessing. Let's say we want 150 in stock, and we will feature. So if I hit create product, it'll go back, post, save it to the database, go home. Hopefully everything worked. We'll see it. And there you go. Here's our Hot Wheels Camaro right there. Now the next thing, of course, we're going to do is edit it, which is similar but not exactly the same as this. So here we go. So let's go ahead and just for a little kickstart, we want to do edit. Let's just copy this and say edit, because we're still going to use exactly the same pattern. We're going to use the get post redirect pattern, but instead of actually creating a product this way, we're going to actually take a string ID, and the ID is going to be the primary key of the product. So what I'll say is entities.single, products.single ID. If we wanted to, well, let's do this. Let's say single or default. Let's check in case they get the wrong ID or something. We'll say if product equals null, then a return HTTP not found. Okay, just tell them, hey, there's nothing at that URL because they asked for an ID. That doesn't work there. And here we go. Let's do this. Make this an int. Give it a default value. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to return the view to this product. All right. So we don't actually have an edit control here, and that's what this is saying. Let's go and say add a view called edit. Same type. Don't need to reference libraries. We're doing that in the master page. Go over here. Now it turns out this edit product here is about exactly the same as before, besides this part here where we just have the title. So let me just put this edit that. So we'll have the name, but besides that small variation, the text is basically the same. We'd probably put this into, let me go to the create method, we'd probably put this part over here into some sort of partial view and just reuse it. But just for this simple example, I'm just going to copy paste and say update product. So we're passing in the same type of model, but this time we're not starting from a blank one, we're starting from an existing one we got out of the database. We're going to pass that in. And then we're going to go over here and also do model binding. And instead of doing add object, we're going to do something different in this example. We're going to say var db product. We're going to go requery it from the database. So if it's got sort of entity sets that have extra data in there and stuff, then we'll preserve those. So we'll say entities dot products dot single, and we also want to pass in that ID, and ID equals like that. Okay. We'll say product goes to product.id equals ID. Okay. So that'll give us our product back. Then we'll just say db product dot name equals product dot name. This is a little bit safer. We maybe could get away with just actually updating, attaching and updating this, but this is good. So let's say quantity in stock. Now typically this copying back and forth is painful. People use open source libraries like AutoMapper and so on. But for our little example, we'll just do this. There's only like 3 or 4 properties. And the last one is price. Okay. So there, we got the product from the database, updated it, and we're saving it, and we're going home. Okay, let's go ahead and run that, see how this works. Oh, it looks like I have gotten something wrong here. Oh, whoops. I'm supposed to say, I forgot to give that alignment expression, product, given a product, we want to find it by its ID. There we go. Now our thing coming back here is correct. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. Recompile, request. Okay, so we can create a new product just like before, but let's go and actually edit one of these. Let's edit our Hot Wheels Camaro that we made. Let's suppose it's supposed to be Hot Wheels. I don't really remember how the name of it goes. And let's say there's some inflation. This is, $357 is the price, but we've sold out of some of them, so we only got 86 left, and it's no longer featured. So if we update this, it'll use the exact same get, post, redirect pattern. Okay, now we've updated our Hot Wheels Camaro. It's $357 and there's only 86 in stock. Okay, excellent. Well, that's how you build basic forms in ASP.NET MVC. You start out with a get method, like this create one here, that generates the initial data. Oops, sorry, this is the post. Starts this get method here. Starts with the initial data. Right. You sometimes will see people start like this with passing no data, but this allows any of the defaults the product class provides to sort of flow into creating the form. Then we go over to our form here, have it strongly typed to whatever type of object we're working with here. Use a HTML.begin form, label for, text box for, checkbox for, all that kind of stuff. Add a regular submit button, and then you go back to the controller and you add a post method that takes this and does model bind into the objects, does whatever logic you need to do. In this case, we're going to insert, here's an additional object to insert into that table, and then save it to so. And then you redirect to some sort of list or maybe the details for that product or something, but typically you don't stay on the form. All right, hopefully you guys found that helpful. And here's the website URL for the original, website URL for the original blog post.